2023, Kenyans paid approximately 37 billion to run parliament. 37 billion. That is more per capita than the United Kingdom pays to run the House of Commons. The UK, a country with 67 million people, 5 centuries of parliamentary tradition, and a functioning government, spend less per citizen than we do. So, the question tonight isn't radical. It isn't even seditious. It isn't anti-democratic. It is simply this. Do we still need parliament? By the end of this episode, you will know exactly how parliament was captured, who did it, and what it would cost us to actually fix it or replace it entirely. Let's start at the beginning, because the beginning actually matters here. In 1963, when Kenya achieved independence, the men and women who had fought, and in some cases even died, for self-governance were not fighting for a flag. They were not fighting for the anthem. They were fighting for a specific idea, that the people of this country would govern themselves, that the laws that bound them would be made by people they chose, that the power would flow from citizen upwards and not from the colonial office downwards. That idea was a name. It was called representative democracy. And the institution built to carry it is called parliament.
On the final screen stage, which will lead this country to independence, I therefore give you the call of Harambee! Harambee! Ni katiba ya Afrika yetu hii ya Kenya.
Now, I want to be precise about what parliament is theoretically supposed to do, because this matters for everything that comes after. Parliament has 3 functions. 3, not 17, not a vague mandate to represent the people. 3 specific constitutional and non-negotiable functions. Number 1, legislation. Parliament makes the laws, not the president, not the cabinet. Parliament. Secondly, oversight. Parliament watches the executive. It holds the president, the cabinet, and the entire machinery of government accountable. It asks questions. It demands receipts. It is constitutionally the check on executive power. And thirdly, representation. Parliament is supposed to carry the voices of 55 million Kenyans into the policy-making process. Your constituency MP is not just someone who shows up at a funeral or opens boreholes. They are your legal representation in the highest lawmaking body in the country. 3 functions: legislation, oversight, representation. Write them down. We will be returning to each one of these tonight with all the required receipts. Here's what I also want you to understand about our specific parliamentary design, because Kenya's structure is more complex and more expensive than most people realize. We have a bicameral parliament, 2 houses. The National Assembly with 350 members and the Senate with 67 members. That's 417 elected and nominated members of parliament, supported by hundreds of staff, committee researchers, clerks, and administrative officers. For context, Germany, the economic engine of Europe, with 84 million people thereabout, and one of the most complex federal systems on earth, runs its Bundestag with 736 members. We have more members of parliament per capita than Germany. India, for instance, which governs 1.4 billion people, runs its Lok Sabha with 545 members. We are not being underrepresented. The opposite situation, turns out, may be the actual problem. Now, why does size matter? Because size is not free. Size is 37 billion a year. And that money has to come from somewhere. It comes from you, and it comes from me. It comes from your taxes. It comes from the same budget that is supposed to build roads, fund hospitals, pay teachers, and service Kenya's now spiraling public debt. So, when we ask whether Parliament is delivering value for that money, we're not being cynical. We are being the kind of citizens Parliament was supposed to create. In the next section, we are looking at what 37 billion actually bought us. The numbers, and I promise you, will be very uncomfortable. Let's talk about performance, not potential, not constitutional mandate, actual documented, verifiable performance. I want to start with attendance because it is the most basic possible metric for a representative body. If your job is to represent the people, the minimum, the bare floor, at least, the least we can ask for, and the least that you can do is that you show up. In the 12th Parliament, that's 2017 to 2022, the National Assembly was scheduled to sit 213 days. On the 71 of those sitting days, Parliament failed to achieve the constitutional quorum of 50 members. That means on one of every 3 scheduled sitting days, Parliament could not legally conduct business because not enough MPs were present. 33% failure rate. On the most basic metric, showing up. And this is not a new problem. It's not even a pandemic anomaly. The records across the 10th, 11th, and the 12th parliaments show the same pattern. Chronic absenteeism, chronic quorum failures, chronic inability to convene for official business. Now, some of you are already preparing your counter-argument. Why? MPs have constituency work. They're not always in Nairobi. Fair. That is a legitimate point, and the Constitution actually accounts for it. Parliamentary recess exists precisely to allow constituency work, but these are sitting days. Days Parliament itself scheduled, days on the calendar, days you and I have actually even paid for. Now let's move to legislation, because perhaps the attendance numbers are misleading. Perhaps Parliament is thin on the floor but productive in committee. Perhaps the bills are getting made. Let's look at what kind of bills. In any given parliamentary session, bills fall into roughly 3 categories. Public bills, the laws that affect the general population, that change how the country actually works. Private members' bills, proposals brought by individual MPs on behalf of their constituents or from personal initiative, and committee bills arising from oversight work. The majority of bills passed by Kenyan parliament in recent sessions have been either routine financial bills, the finance acts, appropriations, the supplementary budgets, or bills that are originating not in parliament but in the executive, government bills brought to parliament for approval. Parliament in practice is largely ratifying decisions that were already made elsewhere. This is not a minor distinction. A legislature that primarily ratifies executive decisions is not an independent legislature. It is a stamp, a proper rubber stamp for the executive. See, the oversight record is where things get genuinely disturbing. Kenya's constitution gives Parliament extraordinary oversight powers. Parliamentary committees can summon any person, including cabinet secretaries. They can demand financial records. They can even recommend prosecution. They can vote no confidence in executive or in an executive officer. These are not advisory powers. They are hard constitutional powers. Now, let me tell you about the NYS scandal. In 2015 and again in 2018, the National Youth Service was robbed twice in broad daylight. Same institution, same pattern, same political adjacency. The total amount lost across both incidents was north of 9 billion shillings of public money. Money that was supposed to be paying for youth training, for infrastructure, for state projects. Parliament, guess what? Parliament convened committees, witnesses were summoned, cabinet secretaries appeared, stand statements were even issued. The Public Accounts Committee definitely met. Reports were even tabled. Questions were asked on the floor. Now, this is the point where you and I want to know, was there an outcome? No, sadly. No cabinet secretary was successfully impeached over NYS. No executive officer lost their job as a result of parliamentary action. No prosecution was initiated on parliamentary referral. The individuals most associated with the scandal and their political networks remained intact and in some cases continued in government. Stay with me here. What I'm about to show you is the part that the people spending this money would very much prefer that you do not do the math on. 37 billion. I've said that number twice or thrice now. Let's make it real. 37 billion is approximately the entire annual budget of the Ministry of Health for primary and preventive healthcare. It is more than Kenya spends annually on road maintenance across the entire national road network. It is more than the total budget allocation for the Teachers Service Commission capitation grants. The money that literally keeps school classrooms running. We spend more running parliament than we spend keeping children in school. No, even in the good book, is that famous phrase that says "Selah." Think about that, or ponder on that. Now, let's talk about individual costs, because this is where it gets personal. A member of parliament or a member of the National Assembly in Kenya earns a basic salary of approximately 710,000 per month. That is before allowances, sitting allowances, mileage allowances, house allowance, committee allowance, medical cover, pension contribution. The total remuneration package for a Kenyan member of parliament is estimated by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, or the SRC, at between 1.1 and 1.4 million shillings per month. For context, the median household income in Kenya is approximately 18,000 bob. 18000. A Kenyan MP earns in total package between 60 and 75 times what the average Kenyan household takes home. Now, I want to be careful here, because high government salaries are not automatically wrong. We want qualified people in parliament. We want people who are not financially desperate and therefore susceptible to petty corruption. Our case can be made for competitive pay. But that argument only survives if the pay is tied to performance. And so, we return to Act 2. 33% quorum failure rate. Rubber stamp legislation, a systematic oversight failure, a record of scandals absorbed, processed, and left unpunished. The SRC itself, the body legally mandated to set government salaries, has on multiple occasions recommended reduction in parliamentary compensation. But guess what? Parliament has rejected those recommendations, not by accident, by vote. Legislators voted to keep their own salaries high against the recommendation of the body created specifically to prevent exactly that outcome. This is not a conflict of interest. It is the conflict of interest. There is also the county angle, which doesn't get nearly enough attention. Kenya has 47 county governments. Kenya's 47 county governments have their own county assemblies, local legislative bodies with their own elected members, their own staff, their own operational budgets. In many counties, the county assembly budget consumes between 30 and 50% of the total county revenue, leaving the actual service delivery, hospitals, roads, water, fighting over what is left. We're not just running one expensive parliament. We are running one expensive parliament and 47 expensive county assemblies simultaneously. The cost of the legislative layer in Kenya, from top to bottom, is extraordinary by any regional comparison, and it is not obviously producing extraordinary results. So, in the next section, we stop looking at the symptoms and look directly at the source of how parliament was captured and by whom and when and why they haven't even let go. What I'm about to walk you through has been documented by constitutional lawyers, political scientists, and multiple parliamentary reform commissions. But it doesn't get said plainly enough. So let me say it plainly. Parliament did not fail by accident. Parliamentary underperformance in Kenya is not the result of individual laziness or insufficient training or poor institutional design, though also those actually exists. It is a result of capture, deliberate, structured, financially incentivized capture of the legislative branch of the executive. Let me show you how it works. The first mechanism is party discipline. In Kenya's political system, political parties are not ideological organizations with consistent policy platforms. They are vehicles owned and or controlled by political principles, typically the party leader, who uses the party structure to enforce loyalty. When a Kenyan MP joins a party, they are not primarily joining a set of ideas. They are joining a political network. In exchange for the network support, the campaign financing, the party ticket, and the presidential endorsement that delivered their constituency, they owe loyalty to the party and most often to the party leader. Loyalty in this case means voting with the executive. It means not embarrassing the patron on the floor of parliament. It means that when the finance bill comes through, you vote yes regardless of what. Regardless of whether the Kenyans and the people who actually sent you to parliament want you to vote to the contrary. When the cabinet secretary needs to survive an impeachment motion, you vote no. When there is a constitutional amendment that benefits the presidency, you are available to be counted. Sadly, this is not a conspiracy. It's a system, and it is made explicit in the Political Parties Act. Section 14 explicitly requires MPs to support and defend the policies and programs of the party, and allows parties to discipline or expel members who vote contrary to party positions. Parliament is constitutionally supposed to be independent, to be an independent oversight body. The law governing political parties requires MP to vote with their party. These two things are in direct structural conflict with each other. In layman language, they are oxymoronic, and no one has resolved it because the people who will resolve it benefit directly from the current arrangement. The second mechanism is financial incentive alignment. The executive in Kenya controls an enormous amount of discretionary spending. Government contracts, CDF allocations, project placements, appointments to boards and parastatals. This spending can flow towards constituency whose MPs are cooperative. It can also be withheld from constituencies whose MPs are considered troublesome. So an MP who challenges the executive on the floor of parliament may win the argument but lose the road. The constituency that voted for them sees no tarmac, no borehole, no dispensary upgrade, and in the next election, guess what? They lose. This creates a structure where individual bravery, the brave vote, the difficult question, the honest impeachment motion is systematically punished and complicity is systematically rewarded. We are not describing corruption, in the narrow transactional sense. We are describing a governance architecture that makes honest parliamentary behavior politically irrational. And if you want to think about it, we keep asking ourselves, when we voted for this guy was straightforward. When we voted for this guy, he was an upstanding man or woman. He had a plan. But what happened the moment he walked into those corridors of parliament? When you've seen members not, in the traditional sense, people who are men of cloak or women of the cloak, guess what? The moment they step in, before they stepped in, they were, the voice of the people. But the moment they stepped into that corridor, into that august house, guess what? We start noticing they're being complicit. Something is changing. Only for you and I to realize now that they are governed by the Political Act, and it is oxymoronic that your political act requires for you to vote as per your party. And if you don't, guess what happens? You get de-whipped. The third mechanism The third mechanism is constitutional design. Specifically, the relationship between the executive and the National Assembly budget process. Parliament votes on its own budget. Parliament allocates the money that pays parliamentary salaries, parliamentary staff, parliamentary committees. The Treasury, which is controlled by the executive, presents those allocations. A parliament that is confrontational with the executive risks budget negotiations that are complicated. This is a conflict of interest that is so large that it should probably be unconstitutional, but it is not. And so it persists. Now, let me give you one concrete, specific, documented example of how all three of these mechanisms operated simultaneously. June 2024. The finance bill. And most of you will keep thinking and saying, but Diwa, why do you keep on coming to this same point? There are much more things that you could refer to, but this is one of the greatest turning points. So, wait a minute and just listen through the process. June 2024, the finance bill, the finance bill of 2024. Guess what happens? Kenya rose. The Gen Z protests. Reject finance bill became not just a slogan, but a national moment. One of the most significant civic mobilization in post-2010 Kenya. Hundreds of thousands on the streets. The world is watching. MPs being recorded telling constituents they would vote no. And then Parliament voted. In the National Assembly, 195 members of Parliament voted to pass the Finance Bill 2024. On the day of that vote, protesters had breached Parliament. There were deaths in Nairobi. The country was watching in real time. 195 members of Parliament looked at the streets outside their own building and still voted to pass a bill their constituents had explicitly, loudly, publicly rejected. Party discipline. Financial incentive alignment, budget dependency. All three mechanisms on one vote in one afternoon. The question is not whether Parliament was captured. It was. The question is whether we can still call it representative. And if not, what is it actually? That is exactly what Act 5 is about. Here's a question. It's a question I want to sit with for a moment. If Parliament is not primarily making independent laws, and it is not primarily providing executive oversight, and is not primarily presenting the policy preference of its citizens, then what is it actually doing? I want to suggest an answer though. It's not a comfortable one, by the way, but I think it is an accurate one. Parliament is performing representation. This is different from providing it. Performance means the visible forms of democratic processes. The debates, the committees, the public hearing, the question times on Tuesday afternoons exists not because they produce policy outcomes, but because they produce legitimacy. They produce the appearance that the system is actually working, that ordinary citizens have a voice, that power is actually accountable. When Parliament holds committee hearings on a corruption scandal and nothing changes, the hearing was not a failure. The hearing was the point. The point or the process signals legitimacy. The outcome was never the purpose. Political scientists actually have a term for this: legitimation function. The legislature legitimizes executive decisions by associating them with the democratic process, even when that process is largely procedural. Now, here's where the picture gets more complicated. Because I do not want to be unfair. There are individual MPs who are genuinely trying. There are committee chairs who have produced serious, rigorous oversight work. The Budget and Appropriations Committee has on occasion made substantive changes to government budget. The Justice and Legal Affairs Committee has produced credible legal reform work. The individual MPs have tabled private member bills that became law and made measurable differences. This is not a story about bad people. This is a story about a bad design or system that constrains even the good people within it. The system produces a specific kind of MP, and it's not the MP that Kenya sadly requires. Consider the CDF model. The Constituency Development Fund, gives each MP approximately 130 million shillings a year to spend on constituency projects, roads, schools, boreholes, bursaries. The list is endless. CDF has become the defining metric of a good member of parliament in Kenya. What has your MP done for the constituency? Almost means, what CDF project have they delivered? Which sounds fine until you understand what is actually happening. An MP's constitutional function is to make national laws and provide executive oversight. CDF turns members of parliament into local project managers. It converts legislators into development officers, and in so doing, gives members of parliament a reason to stay close to the executive because CDF funds flow through government channels, and a reason not to challenge the president too loudly because that risks the constituency resources. Their re-election depends completely and absolutely empirically on. So CDF is not just a fund. CDF is a loyalty mechanism disguised as development. I'll repeat that again. CDF is not just a fund. CDF is a loyalty mechanism disguised as development. And that is why they'll fight tooth and nail to keep CDF, even when it was opposed by everyone, even when the late Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga, who before he left us, fought tooth and nail, saying it was not in their mandate. That's where you see there's no difference between the divide. There's no opposition and there's no government. All of them stood and said we need to keep CDF, and they've morphed it multiple times. Even it was deemed illegal, an illegality by the court systems. And here's what this produces. At the voter level, Kenyans routinely vote for candidates whose national legislative record is weak, whose attendance is poor, whose voting record contradicts stated positions because they fix roads, because they give bursaries, because they show up at funerals. This is not voter ignorance. This is rational response to a system where national legislative function has been effectively neutered by all means, and the only tangible value of an MP is to deliver CDF to the locals. If Parliament cannot check the executive and the citizens cannot change the national policy through their vote, then what is the vote actually for? It is for the road, for the bursary, for the funeral attendance. The citizen and the MP have both adapted rationally to a broken institution, and in adapting, they have locked it further into brokenness. So then, the radical question, not just is Parliament failing, but do we still need it? All right, the question has been asked. Now, let me answer it honestly. Do we still need Parliament? And the broad answer is yes, with a very large, very important, very consequential but. We need a legislature. Any functioning constitutional democracy requires a body that makes laws, that provides oversight, that represents citizens. Abolishing Parliament without replacing it or replacing its function with something better is not reform. It is a gift to the executive power. Any government that proposes abolishing Parliament should be regarded with immediate and total suspicion, because the beneficiary of that abolition is the executive and the executive alone. What we do not necessarily need, though, is this Parliament. In this form, at least, at this size, with this cost and this performance record. There are real structural reforms that constitutional democracies have implemented with documented success. None of them are radical. All of them are uncomfortable for the people currently in Parliament. Reform option number 1, size reduction. The 2010 constitution actually contemplated a smaller legislature. The current size reflects compromises made during the constitutional drafting process that were partly driven by political patronage. A leaner National Assembly of 200 members with the Senate focused exclusively on devolution oversight rather than duplicating National Assembly functions could reduce legislative costs by 35 to 40% while maintaining constitutional function. The Parliamentary Service Commission has itself, in its own reports, acknowledged that the current structure contains duplication. This is not my opinion. This is the PSC's documentation. Reform option number 2, performance-linked remuneration. This one sounds obvious and is apparently, sadly, impossible. Attendance-based salary deductions, productivity metrics tied to committee outputs, public disclosure of voting records cross-reference with the stated constituency position. These are the tools that parliamentary systems in Ghana, Rwanda, and South Africa have deployed to varying degrees. Kenya has discussed versions of them since 1990s and not implemented any of them, because the people who would have implemented them are the same people whose incomes would be greatly affected. Reform option number 3, genuine oversight independence. The structural conflict between parliamentary oversight and executive financial control needs to be constitutionally resolved. Parliamentary budgets should be determined by an independent formula, not treasury negotiations. Parliamentary investigators should have independent powers of referral to the DPP with mandatory response timelines. These are not novel proposals. They are in multiple Parliamentary Reform Commission reports that have been tabled in Parliament and politely ignored. Reform option number 4, the devolution question. Kenya devolved significant functions to county governments in 2013. 13 years later, the question of whether some current National Assembly functions should continue devolving, pushing constituency level accountability down to county level, freeing the National Assembly to actually focus on national legislation, has not been seriously taken up. A parliament freed from constituency development management and purely focused on national laws and executive oversight might paradoxically both cost less and perform better. None of these reforms require tearing down the institution. They require the institution to reform itself, which is, I will acknowledge, approximately the same as asking the lion to administer the self-restraint program. But, and this is the crucial point, they are also achievable through citizen pressure, through electoral consequence, and through the constitutional mechanism that exists precisely for this purpose. Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya is very short. It is 3 lines. It says, all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this constitution. The people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representative. The people may exercise their sovereign power directly. It was written in 2010. 15 years later, we're still working out what it actually means. I want to end this episode where it should end. Not with Parliament. With you and I. No, us. Everything I have described tonight, the capture, the theatre, the cost, the quorum failures, the finance bill vote. It is real, documented, true. Parliament is underperforming against its constitutional mandate in ways that are measurable and consequential. But I want to ask a harder question than why is Parliament failing? The harder question is, who keeps electing a failing parliament? In 2022, more than half of the incumbents who sought re-election to the National Assembly were returned by their constituents. Sitting MPs with public voting records, with documented attendance histories, with CDF audit trails available, more than half were re-elected. This is not ignorance. Kenyans are not politically naive people. The same citizens who followed finance bill votes in real time, who could name the MPs who voted yes, who stormed parliament in June 2024, the same citizens are a majority of them will in 2027 vote for the candidate with the right surname, the right tribe, the right pastor endorsement, the right harambe or funeral contribution. This is the structural problem that sits underneath all the other structural issues. Parliament does not work because Parliament has been captured. Parliament has been captured because MPs have learned that their re-election depends on loyalty to political patrons, not on legislative performance. MPs have learned that because voters have repeatedly confirmed it to be true. The voter, the MP, and the executive are in the triangle of mutually reinforcing dysfunction. Each actor is responding rationally to the incentives the other actors have created. The result is a system that no single actor can fix unilaterally, because fixing it unilaterally is irrational. Here's what I want to leave you with. Parliament reflects us. This is not a comfortable idea, but it is an accurate idea. A parliament that is captured by executive power, that rewards loyalty over accountability, that prioritizes constituency patronage over national legislation. That parliament exists because a sufficient number of us in sufficient elections have made choices that produce the same outcome. The question is not whether we still need parliament. We do. The question is whether we are willing to be the kind of citizens that parliament needs us to be. That means voting on legislative record. It means reading the Hansard. Yes, the Hansard is public. Yes, you can look up how your member of parliament voted or votes for any of the votes. It means treating a bursary or a road as a service you already paid for through your taxes and not as a personal gift from your member of parliament. It means building the political culture slowly, stubbornly, incrementally, in which a captured parliament is an electoral liability rather than a structural guarantee. None of which is fast. None of it is even satisfying. None of it will fix parliament by Thursday. But guess what? It is the mechanism. It is the lever. And Article 1 already put it in your hands. If parliament doesn't represent us, it is partly because it was designed not to, but it's also in part because we have not yet demanded that it does. The mirror moment, sadly, is always uncomfortable. That's the Kenyan week that was. I'm your host, DY. Receipts of our vibes, always. Oh, before you go, if you've been watching the Kenyan week that was for a while, you'll know this connects to something we covered in the tribalism episode. Because the pattern of ethnic loyalty voting and the pattern of parliamentary capture are not separate problems. They are the same problem wearing different clothes. That episode is linked on the screen right now. And if tonight is your first time here, hey, welcome. And the place to start is the financial bill episode. It is where a lot of these lessons or this becomes real for most of Kenyans. And that one is also on the screen. So, and if you like, please share, like, subscribe, send it to one or two people that you know you can debate with and ask these real questions. Because our essence on this platform is to ensure that we build civic education. We make all ourselves understand before we get to the 2027 election that we have a proper understanding of what is not just required of us, but what we can build with the powers that we already have to create a Kenya that you and I truly enjoy. So, again, like I've said, I've been your host, DY, and please like, share, subscribe, and Also, watch the episode that we did with Couch Connect. It was a brilliant conversation. And we appreciate all your following and everything that you guys are doing for us. Asanteni sana, and God bless you all, and God bless Kenya.